Hi everybody, welcome to Fast 15 Flurry session 2. Let's get straight on to the lesson. So last session we finished with this section of verbs. Let's start the clock. So just a quick repeat that when we're doing the polite form of verbs, the present tense affirmative is going to be mas. It resembles des. Present tense negative will always be masen, which is a little bit similar to dewa arimasen. Past tense affirmative will be mashita, which again you can see resembles deshita. And the past tense negative will be the combination of these two, masen deshita, which is very similar to dewa arimasen deshita. Okay, so how do we turn verbs from the plain form, from the infinitive, into the mas form? The simple way, which we'll talk about for group 1 verbs, because group 1 verbs are the most tricky, is that we'll frequently refer back to this hiragana chart. So this is the Japanese kind of alphabet, and it's important to become familiar with this. So I recommend having this printed out and looking at it frequently. In the group 1 verbs, they are all starting in the infinitive on this u line. So I've marked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different verbs from those sets. And you actually only have to remember these 9 verbs because all other group 1 verbs are modeled in the same way. And you'll see that they all finish with an u sound. So to meet, for example, is ao. So this is the letter A. This is the stem plus the suffix u. Kaku, to write, starts with the stem ka, and then we've got the suffix ku. Or yogu, to swim, has got the stem oyo, and then gu, which behaves the same way as ku. Osu, to push. Again, you can see that the stem is o, and the suffix is su. Matsu, to wait. The stem is ma, the suffix is su, and etc. Shinu means to die, and I think this is probably the only verb that's in the nu set. Yobu, to call. Yomu, to read, and kairu, to return home. So in all these cases, we take the suffix, which is in this u row, and we jump up to the next row, and then we put mas at the end. So ao becomes a-i, and then mas becomes I-mas, to meet. Kaku, to write, starts from ku, goes up to ki, so it goes kaki-mas. Or yogu goes up to gi, or yogimas. Osu, the suffix goes to shi, so it becomes o-shi-mas. Matsu, the suffix goes from tsu up to chi, so this becomes ma, chi, mas, to wait. Shinu, the suffix goes from nu up to ni, so it's shi, ni, mas. Yobu, well, there's no bu, is actually there's hu, but this is then made into a hard bu, so it becomes yo, bi, mas. Yomu, to read, the suffix goes from mu to yon, mi, mas. And kairu, the suffix goes from ru up to ri into kairimas. So this is all group 1 verbs basically behave the same way. For group 2 verbs, these are really simple. We remove the ru suffix, and all group 2 verbs will finish with ru, although not all verbs that finish with ru necessarily are group 2 verbs. But we remove the ru from the group 2 verb infinitive and just add mas. So the only one you have to remember is tabemas, to eat. Taberu becomes tabemas, because all other group 2 verbs behave the same way. And then group 3, the irregular verb transformation, there's only 2 of these, so I'm afraid we just have to memorize them. Suru becomes shimas, to do, and kuru becomes kimas, to come. So I would recommend that you at least memorize 4 verbs. The iku from group 1 becomes ikimas, taberu becomes tabemas, suru, and kuru. And the rest of these we should just slowly memorize as time goes by. Now we will immediately jump into what's called the te form of the verb. This is most often used in the imperative to ask people to do something. So for example, if we ask somebody, please go to Tokyo, then we would use this te form. And it's also very useful for linking parts of a sentence together. So if you've got a sentence which has got one verb statement and then another verb statement, the first verb statement is made into the te form. So it's like saying, I did this and then the last verb statement, the verb is made into mas or mashita, depending if you want to say it in the past or the present. And we also use the te form of the verb to make present continuous tense, like I am eating now instead of I eat. So this is, let's start from the easy ones actually. The group 2 verbs will almost certainly be the easiest ones to start with. We simply knock off the ru from the infinitive, and just like a robotic arm, we attach te onto this. So this is really simple. So we would normally knock off ru and add mas, but in this case we'll just add te. So taberu becomes tabemas if we want to say I will eat, and then to say eat as a command or request, this becomes tabete. And mimas, which is normally, sorry, these are the wrong way around. It should be miru is the infinitive, mimas is to see, and then mite, please see, is this. Group 3 verbs are, again, there's only 2 verbs, we just have to memorize them. Suru, to do, is shimasu, and please do would be shite, and kuru, to come, is kimasu, becomes kite. So these are really, really easy to transform. And then the group 1 verbs, what we should just do is rearrange all the vital parts of your brain and the universal dimensions into a nice bouquet of flowers. This is probably one of the hardest parts of the Japanese language, is to transform group 1 verbs into the te form. So once we've done this and once we've mastered it, we've really walked the highest mountain in learning Japanese. But let's have a quick look. So again, here we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 familiar verbs. And you can see that I've color coded them because these will all behave the same way. So the verbs in this column will behave the same way as the verbs in this column. You see, they're red, and these will behave the same way as in this column, in the ru column. The ones which are marked in this purpley pink will also all behave the same way when we turn them into the te form. And this leaves this blue unique column for ku or gu will again kind of change the same way. So those in the red column, this ao, matsu, and kaeru, we remove the, we take the stem, a, ma, and kae, and we replace it with this hard te. Now, this is important in Japanese that you observe that this is a double consonant. So a good example of this in the English language is the word check card, check card. So it's not check card, it's check card. So I hit the consonant twice, check card. So this will also, it's also important to do the same thing with these double consonants. So please meet, which is ao, would be atte, atte, and not ate, but atte. Matsu, please wait, matte. And kaeru, please go home, kaite, kaite. This unique column in the blue, the verbs which finish with ku, we remove the ku part, the suffix, and replace it with ite. And for gu, to swim, we replace the suffix gu with ide. So please write would become ka ite, kaite, and please swim would be oyoide, oyoide. Sorry, this is actually the unique column, the su. So we have to remember that su, when we move up to the e row, there is no si in Japanese, there's shi. So osu, to push, would become oshimasu, and therefore it would become oshite, oshite. So the su gets replaced with shite. We don't have to make this a hard T. This is just te. So it's oshite, oshite. And then the pink column, shinu, yobu, yomu, anything ending with nu, bu, or mu, all finish with nde, nde. So die would be shinde, read, call rather, would be yonde, and this is surprisingly the same as read, which is also yonde. So you will know by context if you mean to call or if you mean to read. You need to practice these and learn by remembering one example from each column, as I've got here. I recommend using these ones. There is one exception, which is iku. Now you'd think that iku, being in this column, would become ite, because the ku becomes ite, but actually this is pronounced ite, ite. And sorry, there's another exception as well. Not exactly an exception, it's a different way of saying it. You would be normally written as ite, ite. So it sits in this column here, I-U, ite. Now, if you write it, you have to write it as ite, but when you say it, in order to not confuse it with all the other verbs which are ite in their te form, and there are a few of them, this is often pronounced yutte, yutte. So it's clear that you're saying to say, yutte. Okay, let's quickly jump on to i-adjectives. There are two types of adjective, 2.5 really in Japanese. The most complex set are the i-adjectives, but these are also the most commonly used. All i-adjectives consist of a stem and an i, and this i needs to change depending on the affirmative or negative nature of the adjective, or if it's in the past or the present tense. So I've written some example i-adjectives up here. These are ones which you should try and memorize because they are almost certainly the most commonly used. And if you remember how to inflect these, then it's really easy to remember. And they all inflect the same way. So atsui, hot, samui, cold, hayai, fast or early, osoi, slow or late, oki, paying attention to the long vowels for big, and chisai, again, paying attention to the long vowels for small. If we want to change the tense or the polarity, then this means whether it's affirmative or negative. If it's affirmative, it's as you see it here. If it's in the present affirmative tense, it's this one. To make it negative, though, we remove the I, treat this as a suffix, and add kunai. And you'll see that atsu kunai, for example, makes a new i-adjective. Just keep this in mind because this will be useful in about 30 seconds. To make the past tense, then we remove the I and replace it with katta, katta. So this makes the past affirmative. So it was hot would be atsukatta desu, atsukatta desu. If we want to make the past negative, then we combine these together. As I said, atsukunai is a newly made i-adjective. It's got a little I at the end. So again, to make this into the past, we simply remove that little I and replace it with katta. So it was not hot would be atsukunakatta desu. Please be careful. Don't change des into deshita or dewa arimasen or dewa arimasen deshita. Whether the i-adjective is in the present or the past or the affirmative or the negative, we always finish the sentence with des. So to say it was not hot would still be atsukunakatta desu. To make these i-adjectives into adverbs, again, we keep the stem, remove the little I, and put ku. So to say it will become hot would be atsuku narimasu. Narimasu means to become. So to become hot, atsuku narimasu. This is not, the adverb is not time sensitive. You make the time based on narimasu. So to say it became hot, we would say atsuku narimashita. Here we've got some examples. The weather has become colder. Tenki ga, tenki means weather. Samuku, So this means towards cold, narimashita has become. Samuku narimashita. And then yesterday, I ate, oh, sorry, this should be I ate quickly. Kino hayaku tabemashita. Kino hayaku tabemashita. Okay, that is 15 minutes. I hope you found this useful. We'll continue on the next session. See you next time. Bye.